KTM 690 Enduro first impressions. Get a little walk around here. Just finished a 105-mile ride. I've been on this bike for 2 days now, and I don't even know what to say. It far exceeds my expectations. Once again, I'm a dirt bike background kind of guy. Very little street experience, and I shouldn't say that. I've ridden on the street quite a bit, but not at like a competitive level or anything. It was always just for commuting. This 690, I had the chance to ride it in all the fuel maps today, and starting with 0, which is the poor fuel map, 1, which is kind of like the Enduro, the easy map, and then I rode it in number 2, and it's currently in number 2, the advanced map, which is by far my favorite map. Has significantly more power. I did everything today. I did some kind of technical rocky trails with it. I'm going to splice in some different clips of stuff I did today. Asphalt on it. I did kind of some, I don't know, hair scrambles. Not quite motocross because I didn't get off the ground really, but some kind of moto style work on it. I'll start with the negatives of the bike. There really isn't any. The biggest negatives that I can come up with for this motorcycle, in stock trim, this is a bone stock 690 Enduro. The only thing I did was a little bit of control setup. I spun the handlebar clamps around to their most forward position. I rolled the bars up a little bit, changed the levers that make my feet like them a little more. I don't even know what the tire pressure is in this thing right now. I have no clue. I installed the racks and this big skid plate. This skid plate is awesome. It's very expensive. I'll do a review on that, but it's worth every second of it. I bounced a couple of big, huge rocks off the thing. It sounded like a big gong today. And my only real complaint are the stock foot pegs. KTM, please put adventure pegs on these bikes. So they're a little bit wider motorcycle. It doesn't really feel wide when you're riding it, but it is a little wider, and your leg kind of comes out away from this a little bit, and basically you sit on the outside of this peg, this like 1.5 inch of peg. So it needs those 4 3/4 foot pegs on it. A little wider would be nicer. That is my only complaint about this motorcycle. This literally is a unicorn motorcycle. Far exceeds my expectations. So in the motocross stuff, the only time it felt like a bigger bike was when I was shoving it in this really loamy, real sharp corner and stuffing the front end in. It was a little bit, you could feel the weight. It would dive a little bit. I think most of that will go away with suspension setup. I clicked 4 clicks into the compression and I think 1 into the rebound, and that actually helped a little bit. I also have not set up the sag on this bike yet. I only weigh 142 pounds, but I'm 6 feet tall. I'm a runner, so the sag was maybe 80 millimeters from the factory. It's really was too high in the back. These racks probably added 15 pounds to my body weight, so that helped a little bit. But the back end is I didn't know which clicker was the compression, so I didn't want to screw with it while I was riding until I looked it up. But I haven't. It's been years since I set up any kind of suspension, but it's pretty good considering it's not set up for me at all. On the street, it feels like a supermoto. I can't believe how well this thing handles with these knobbies. I mean, these are Pirelli MT21s. You can see they are full-on knobby tires. Obviously, they're not as good as a motocross tire, but they're DOT legal. I got 200 miles on them. You can see the knobbies are splitting a little bit. These are pretty rocky miles. Sorry, got an airplane going over. Hawaiian Airlines. But for what they are and what I rode in today, they're doing okay. I can't imagine they're going to last much more than about 500 miles before they're completely wrecked and spitting knobbies off, but they're okay. On the street, I have not had this thing slide or even come close to sliding even once. All you got to do to get this thing to corner on the street is just shift your ass over to the side and then hammer the throttle, and it finds the line of traction and it just goes. I had this thing, and I don't know if I was going this fast today, but I had this thing in the twisties the other night, seeing what it would do, 60, 70, 80 miles an hour through the twisties, and all you got to do is just lean it over. It just sticks, and just hammer the throttle, and that's where I'll talk about the power and the power delivery. So we have this nice little tack. This is awesome. I had a KTM Duke, and the tack was just a couple of little black bars at the top, and you couldn't really see it. So this tack being a nice dial, and the speedometer is actually nice and large. You can see it pretty well as soon as it comes on here. You can see the zero there. This is the temperature gauge. It has time. It has a gear selector, which is actually pretty nice. The odometer, 215 miles in the last 2 days, 109.5 today. So the power from 2,000 to 3,000 on this thing is absolutely buttery smooth. It's almost electric, which is funny because the throttle is the fly-by-wire electric. But the power from 2 to 3, absolutely electric. It cruises right about 4,000 RPMs at 55 miles an hour. That's a little slow for the type of highway riding. I turn the blinker off. The highway riding that I do, so I might end up putting a 16-tooth sprocket on it, which I will get into as well. When you start to approach 5, the power really starts to pour on. The power curve is very two-stroke in nature. And when you hit 5 to 55, that's when you're going to start to see the front wheel come off the ground. And the power is so smooth on the bottom that I don't want to say it's almost disappointing, because it's very, very rideable and it should be that way. But when you really start to feel the power of this thing, when you go past 5 to 5,500 RPMs, and then it just pulls and pulls and pulls. It was dark, so I haven't had it top speed yet, but I got it to 109 miles an hour very, very easily. It was still pulling, and yeah, it had no qualms with it at all. So it cranks, and then I don't even know, I don't look down at the speedometer or the tach when I'm going that fast, but I'm sure that it's cranking up in here at 7,000 or 8,000 RPMs. Couple of cool little features. KTM has these things on the frame where you just slide the skid plates in, so it's only 2 bolts to take the skid plate on and off, and so that's awesome. The factory skid plate was a plastic one. It's really not that bad. I just ride in some really, really rocky stuff and wanted to make sure that I don't break my cases so that I have an $11,000 paperweight. I do have a twin air foam filter for it that I have not put in it yet. I have some Cycra Pro Band hand guards that I have not put on there yet. These guards are okay. They're not up to my standards, but they're okay. The stock mirrors, they're these big dorky rabbit ear things. Not that these are a whole lot less dorky, but these are folding, so I can fold them in like that. They're just $14 mirrors from eBay. I don't know if you can see in the mirror. Shout out to my friend Jim with Factory Power Sports in Longview, Washington. Grips, everything's nice. It's typical KTM. On the gas cap, a lot of people have complained that dirt will fall into the gas cap, and I'll show you this. There's an aftermarket one that has a lip on it with a screw cap. Well, I don't know if KTM changed this for 2018, but there is a lip on this one as well. So yes, dirt might collect around there, but it has a lip on it, so I don't see gas falling into this tank very easy. So maybe that's something for 2018. This is a 2018 model. That weight in the back of the bike is nice. The stock exhaust, it's all stainless. The fit and finish on it is actually really, really nice. It's just a big heavy can, but you know, they have to do that to meet all the government standards and stuff, so I can't blame KTM for that. The seat has a nice little quick release. There's a little cable right here. You just pull it, seat pops off. There's no room underneath of it currently. It's all computer and airbox. I'm gonna gut the airbox out of that thing at some point and probably put a Rottweiler in it, and then who knows, maybe I'll have some space in there to put my registration or something. But as it sits, there's no space under there. It's kind of hard to get the front of the seat back on, so I'm not going to take it off for you. The front suspension on this thing, awesome. I believe these are 48mm forks. I think they have high and low speed compression and rebound. Like I said, I haven't really screwed with it. I just did a couple clicks to make it not dive in the corner quite so much. Extremely confidence inspiring. There is no flex at all whatsoever. Feels like a motocross bike. Typical KTM brakes. I'll come around the other side here. Big Galfa rotor on that thing. I don't know how many millimeter it is, doesn't really matter. It's big and it works really well. It's floating. Brembo brakes, steel braided lines. Yeah, great brakes. KTM, in typical KTM fashion, there is wide bladed levers on the bike, so all the controls have a real wide footprint, or whatever you want to call it, for pulling in. It's a one finger clutch. This is my handicapped hand. It doesn't really work very well. Super easy clutch. Butter smooth, which is going to send me into the transmission. KTM, thumbs up. Absolute perfect spacing in the gears on this bike. I love it. It feels just like my motocross bikes. One thing I've hated about some of the other bikes I had, the KLR in particular, is that the spacing in the gears was retarded. Maybe if the bike had as much horsepower as this, I wouldn't have noticed it, but on the lower horsepower engines, if they don't get that gearing right, it's just awful. I felt like I was always between gears. This thing is good. It's really good, especially for how fast it ends up going. But I'll probably put a 16-tooth sprocket on it. Most of the more technical slow stuff I was doing today, I was still in second gear, and first gear was a little low, so I know that I can put that 16-tooth on for the highway, so that I can get a little bit better highway cruising and still have decent in the trail. One thing about the highway cruising is at about 3,800 RPMs, it's still buttery smooth. When you get to about 42 is when you start to feel a little bit of vibration in the handlebars. It's not a shake. It's not like an old LC4 where it just shakes, all this counterbalance stuff. It's just a hum through the bars. I have different bars. I have some Pro Taper bars I'm going to put on here. Maybe that'll help. I don't know, but if I can drop that 500 RPMs on the highway for the 60 mile-an-hour cruising speed, then it'll take a lot of vibration out of my hands. You do catch a lot of wind on this thing. It's basically just a dirt bike on the street. There's no fairing system. If I do any kind of a day tripping on this thing, I'm definitely going to have to come up with some sort of a bigger windshield solution, because when you're doing, you know, anything after 55, there's just a lot of wind pushing on you, and it's just a little bit too much for sitting on the bike for a long time. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. This is just the first impression. I'll do a lot more reviews on this bike probably. Extremely happy with this purchase. I'm not a guy that's happy with things just because I pay money for them. I'm extremely happy so far with this bike. It's the exact compromise I need for everything. I don't think that I would have been happy on a 500 EXC. I like the nimbleness, you know, that it's more dirt bike oriented, but I ride on the street a lot. I rode 60 miles today just to hit the dirt, so I need that asphalt cruising power, and this does a great job. Super smooth, beautiful, more range. My first tank was 55 miles per gallon, which kind of blew me away. That's almost 10 more miles a gallon better than I was getting on the KLR 650 that was also bone stock, except for an airbox mod. And I don't know what I'm going to be at today, but I topped it off one more time and it was 48 miles a gallon. That was pretty hard romping, high RPM street miles, so it really is a 50 mile per gallon bike. And that's in also riding in the high performance map, which is map 2. The map is right underneath the seat. There's a little circular switch that you just has little numbers on it, and there's a little white line, and you just click click click. And I rode around the track in all 3 of them, and zero map is going to be great for people that are not experienced riders. I imagine this bike could maybe get a little bit intimidating for people who have zero experience. Once, not on the bottom, but once you hit that like 5,000 RPMs, the front wheel starts to climb pretty quick. So that 0 map and 1 map will work pretty good for those people. But I like riding in it too. It has a lot more throttle response. or just more power delivery at low RPMs, and then it cranks a lot harder on the top. And I like to, I'm an old 2-stroke rider. I kind of, it's probably not the correct way to ride a 4-stroke, but I like to get the wheels spinning. When the wheel's spinning, it's a little bit more predictable for me in my mind. But yeah, great controls. I'm 6 feet tall. I'm gonna put my pro tapers on here. This seems like a fairly low bend bar. The ergonomics are a little cramped. I'll probably have to put some risers on and get it up about another 1/2 inch to inch to make it comfortable for me long-term standing. And I stand almost all the time off-road, so I don't know, just like to get up and see where I'm going. So these are tusk racks. They're heavy. They didn't really, I didn't notice them when I was speeding around in the dirt today. The bike carries the weight pretty well, especially considering the suspension's not set up yet. Stock tires, they're pretty good. I don't know, I'm impressed with this thing all the way around. So anyway, I'm gonna splice in some clips of what I did today, and that's my first impressions of the KTM 690 Enduro R.